All right, this chironomid that we're going to tie is a culmination of a lot of different throat samples and water samples I've taken of chironomids over the past couple years specifically. And I've been noticing a lot of really bright, kind of lime colored bugs, pupa. So I usually tie this in a 14 or 12, and I think it just adds a good variety. There are going to be, different colors to match what the naturals wherever you may be fishing, but I found this color to be consistent enough and effective enough that I kind of include it now in my boxes. So we're going to start out with the bead on the hook. I'm going to slide that back, and the thread I'm going to use here is some fluorescent chartreuse. And we'll just start the thread in front. And so what I've got is some parapost in white, and I'll take one clump of this as I cut it right out of the package, and I just divide it. So it leaves me with about that much. And I'll tie this in parallel just like that, and then we can gently make that move to the perpendicular position. One wrap there, one wrap there. Now we want to conserve our wraps a bit, because what will happen is that this bead can come up and it will push those forward a little bit for us, so we don't want to impede that bead. And then I'll come in here and I want to trim this off, and we got about a bead's length of material. On either side, and then I'll just go ahead and whip finish this off. You could also pull it over the top of the bead. It's not going to matter. You don't want to build up enough too much thread here to impede the movement of your bead. It needs to snug up against those breathers. And for whatever reason, just be leery. This fluorescent chartreuse color is kind of weak. So it'll fray easily, just be careful with that. And then you notice as you bring it to the front there, you can push that up against the breathers. Now I'll just come right in behind this and throw in a few wraps to snug that back up there. That makes it nice and secure. Now I'll actually tie these in two different versions. Part of the reason I call this the lemon lime is because it's got all these fancy green and greenish yellow colors. But I'll also tie it with a black bead. So whatever you think best. This chartreuse bead with a lot of still waters is one of my, not just on this pattern, but the bead in general is a go-to color of bead. So, and I'm going to work my way down to the bend. And now this is, I've been messing around with chironomids for a lot of years, and one thing I have found that I tended to do early on was make my bodies way too thick. So rather than tie in the length of the body to get that nice and smooth, I'll do a little trick here that conserves that space for thread and other things that I need to use. So I've got my Uniflex, and I just measure out, it doesn't matter how much, but enough that I can grab onto. And I'm going to come here and throw a wrap right on top so that the hook or the material's on top of the hook. And I'll go 2 wraps on top and then a couple or 3 wraps in front of it to lock that in. Now all I have to do is pull that up, and you got to stretch it tight. This is where you need good sharp scissors. And that will cut that off, and you're left with not a big, huge bulk of stuff at the butt section. Okay, now we're going to tie in the red tinsel. So I've just got some Vivus hollow tinsel in cranberry. This is the small size. I found a lot of these pupa still have, and you'll see this not just this lemon lime one, but a lot of different ones will have the color red somewhere in their body. And so that's what we're going after here. And now, after I've tied this in, I'm going to go ahead and work my thread up, because the thread is the underbody on this pattern. And chironomids do have a taper, so I'm going to come back here and go about halfway down, go back up, and then we'll work the thread back down to that middle section and wrap the tinsel up the body to that little tie-in point. And I'll just tie that off there. Right, now I'm going to grab my Uniflex and we'll just very tightly on the first few wraps, also that helps that red show through, give it some turns. That red's going to show through there. And then as I work my way farther up, I'm just going to gradually release the tension so that the taper keeps up like I want it. And then I'm just going to go right up behind the bead. By the time we get there, it's going to have hardly any tension on it. All right, now we're going to coat the body with some fluorescing UV clear fly finish. The way I typically do that is I'm going to get a bodkin ready. And I've got one of these fancy loon bodkins, which are nice because it's a handle you can actually hold very nicely. And I've got this one I use for resins quite a bit. And I'm just going to lay down a little bit of the resin on top and bottom. You don't want a ton. And then I'm just going to come up here with my bodkin, sorry, and work that into the body. And then if I need to move any, I move it up so that keeps my taper right. The other thing, you want to make sure you're not adjusting your wraps, especially up towards the top. They're not very tight, so if you do, you just move them back. Okay, once I've got that, I'm going to grab my handy mega powerful infinity light and slowly give that a cure. And now for the last little bit, of course you know it, if it's chironomid, it's got to have UV shrimp pink eye stub, which is actually more orange than anything, but it's shrimpy and very chironomidy. In fact, if you look at a lot of the wing buds, and then we're basically tying these wing buds in the round, but they range from kind of a palish orange to more brighter. This one we're obviously going for kind of the pale, which is what we got right there. Now for a lot of people, they may be going, what the heck, that doesn't look like the colors I see. Trust me, there are these lemon lime colored bugs out there. Again, their thorax is probably more black, but this is somewhat of an attractor style. Just going to give that a good whip finish. And that's all she wrote. That is our lemon lime Chironomid Pupa.